Good afternoon, this is Sarah from Crossbuckle Homestead. Today I am going to show you how to can dried beans. So last night the first thing I did was set some dried beans in water, and that allows them to rehydrate a little bit and plump up. So over here I have some quart jars set up. I also have garlic that I've peeled. This garlic is actually from our garden, so that's great. So are these jalapenos. I do have some cumin seeds that I purchased from bulk at Whole Foods, which is probably the least expensive way to pick up any spices. Then I have some black peppercorns that I use in my beans as well. So from before, here is some of the chicken broth that I use. So what I'm going to end up doing is throw in a garlic clove in each of the jars, a jalapeno piece in each of the jars. So I'm going to throw a teaspoon of the cumin seeds in each of the jars, about 5 of the peppercorns, and a half a teaspoon of salt. Okay, so as you'll see, I'm going to can the pinto beans and the black beans at the same time. I have filled them up about 3/4 of the way full for both the pinto and the black beans. And I'm going to add a cup or so of the chicken broth, and then I'm going to fill them all the way to the top, leaving an inch of space with water. So they'll have a little bit of the chicken flavor without using all of the delicious chicken broth. So you'll see I have placed the lids on the jars and I have secured them with the rings. It does look like an inordinate amount of liquid for the beans, but let me promise you they will continue to absorb them, and you'll want a little bit of that bean gravy in there to make whatever you end up cooking with them really delicious. So we have the Presto canner sitting here on the cooktop, and look, I'm telling you, you can do it no matter what kind of cooktop you have. I have filled it with 3 quarts of hot water, and it is set to boil. So I'm going to go ahead and stick these jars in. So this canner is a 28 quart, and it does fit 7 quarts of product in there. I'm going to go ahead and put on the lid. And there are little arrows that you line up. One is right there, and the other is on this little handle. So what you will want is this to be lined up with that. And then you swing it around to close. Now, you can use the pressure gauge to can. However, I find that that requires a lot of constant attention from me, and I'm just not that kind of person. So I go ahead and I got the suggestion of using a weighted gauge, and that's wonderful. For our altitude, we need a 10-pound gauge. Works the same way. So we will go ahead, set this up, ready to go. It will come up to boil. Steam will start coming out of this vent right here. And then eventually this vent will pop up because of the pressure that's building up in the tank, the canner. And then this, actually I'm going to take this off. Then the steam will start venting from this particular nozzle. And so this will need to vent for 10 minutes. So once it gets up to temperature, it will start boiling. This will eventually pop up. Once that pops up, the steam will escape from this nozzle. That's when you start counting 10 minutes. Once that has been steaming or venting for 10 minutes, then you go ahead and add the weighted gauge. And once it starts rattling at a relatively constant speed, that's when you start your timer for your pressure canning goods. So for beans, for instance, it's going to be 90 minutes for dry beans in quart-sized jars. So we like to do this one early in the day so that we don't have to sit around all day or not all night and wait for it to be finished. Just want to show you real quick the update on the canning pot. You can see there's steam coming out from both vents, this front one and this little nozzle that I was talking about. You'll see now that the weighted gauge is rocking on this canner. You'll also see that the pressure gauge is above 10. That's exactly how you want it to be. So from here, it's 2:41. We're gonna mark 90 minutes on our timer, and then we are going to go ahead and turn off the burner, move the canner to a cool spot on the stove, and let it come down at release temperature or pressure naturally. So what we're going to do is wait 90 minutes, take this off of the heat, and then wait till this little button releases back downward. Then we can take the top off. If you proceed to take the pressure out of the canner by hitting that button and speeding the process up, you'll actually risk losing the jars and all the food in it as well. So the longer, slower process of reducing the pressure naturally is actually going to save your jars and your food. So the canner started smelling really weird, and it was leaking water, and you can actually see there's like a little puddle of water on the side. So I don't know what's going on. I did take it immediately off the heat. It was almost towards the end anyways, and I moved it off. You really shouldn't have any colored liquid around the air vent, so that's a little bit of a concern. But it has come completely down from pressure. You'll see that here. You'll also see that the button is loose there as well. I'm going to go ahead and take this lid off, and we'll see what awaits us inside. I'm not anticipating anything great.
I don't smell it tapped.
Well, that's better than I had hoped. Oh, there is a very little liquid in the bottom, so I'm wondering if the gasket somehow got folded on itself or something. But I'm going to take these out. You'll see that they are still like super hot, so please do not touch them. They're bubbling, and they will continue to bubble till they cool down. Yeah, I think something just happened to the gasket, so I need to just double check. I don't know if I like somehow put it on wrong because I was trying to film or what, but everything does look like it's okay. But the bottom of the canner, which is normally covered in water, is covered in, well, very little of anything, which is not great. So we'll let this cool down. We'll add a little bit of water and see if we can figure out what's going on. Let's take a look at the lid real quick. So this is the underside of the pressure canning lid. This rubber gasket is what is supposed to keep the liquid on the inside. The liquid didn't all the way burn out, but it certainly did a bit. And some of the liquid from the beans emerged from the can, which is always what happens. It doesn't matter what you're canning. And so the bean juice kind of burnt along the bottom. So I think what I'm going to do next time is just can something for a shorter duration. So maybe just something else, just to test it, make sure it's working fine, and then I'll just add another quart of water, just in case. And hopefully it won't happen again. We'll see you guys. It's the next day. I just wanted to show you that the beans turned out just fine, despite the canning catastrophe that could have potentially happened. We've got our black beans and our pinto beans canned here. I'm going to go ahead and take the rings off and rinse the jars underwater because they do get a little bit of residue on them. And then I'm going to go ahead and label these and stick them in our pantry. Just to follow up on the canning situation from yesterday, it does appear that there's a little bit of a leak in the gasket around the pressure canner. I did can something following the beans, and it did leak a little bit, but I had already known that that might happen, and I added an additional quart of water to it, and it was just fine. I have ordered 2 more gaskets on Amazon just to be prepared. Move the old jars forward and the new jars go to the back. And this is our current pantry system. We've got full meals plus tomatoes up here, and we've got some sewing supplies and condiments and jams in this cabinet, plus additional canning supplies. But we've got potato leek soup. We have beef chili. We have bolognese. We have Thai chicken curry. We have baked beans. We've got chicken broth. We call this the pork burrito mix. It's really delicious. We've got beef stew. Doesn't look super good, but I promise you it's tasty. And then we've got something called harira, which is a Moroccan lentil soup, which is super delicious and also vegetarian, amongst all of our beans. So that's how we do the process, start to finish, of pressure canning. And if I've left anything out, please do let me know. But leave your comments as to what you pressure can, and I'd love to hear all of that stuff. Thanks so much for joining us.